I'm Washayla Sananda. Thank you for joining me today. I wondered when my guidance was going to prompt me to do this video. It feels like it's been coming for a really long time, and the time for me to be quiet about some of these topics is ending. And in that, I hope that my voice will inspire your voice. There are some really big issues up for not only the country I live in, the United States, but all around the world. And until now, I've been pretty silent or quiet about certain topics because guidance directs me. And I knew that there would be a time when I started to say more about certain things. And I go with guidance. I tune in before I do a video like this and send it out to the 10,000 people on my list, plus the people that will hear it and see it on social media. I'm not going to just find something to talk about on a whim. I meditate, I listen, I open my heart, and I receive from guidance. What do we talk about? What is the most impactful and important thing to share with my list today, with the people that listen for guidance, for upliftment, for direction, for assistance, for activation, for heart awakening, for ascension guidance? It is my service. It is my service and my purpose to be of service to you and to bring you the most relevant things that are able to hopefully help you step into your own ascension journey in a more deeper and more profound way. And that's really my intention with every one of these videos that I offer. I'm not pushing a personal agenda. Sometimes I am making an offer, not today. Sometimes I'm making an offer, but again, that offer, it comes from guidance. What I offer is not just something I randomly came up with. Everything I do with intention. Everything I share with you, I share with intention. When I bring a speaker in on a podcast, I look for that with intention. Doesn't mean I always align with everything they say, but I do it with intention to serve you, to bring you information, to bring you, sometimes it's upliftment, sometimes it's awareness, sometimes it's an expansion of consciousness, sometimes it's an expansion of the heart, sometimes it's consideration for the mind, could be any number of things. So I've been wondering when I would start to cross into certain things that are really dear to my heart. And today is that day for at least some of these things, some of these subjects. What today is really about is freedom and standing for freedom and activism, taking action on your ascension path. It's not enough to think good thoughts. It's not enough to meditate. And again, I'm going to say this isn't for everyone. There are some people that's going to be your path. That's fine. But for the majority of us who are awake and awakening, this is the time to step into action, to step into activation, activism, and action, and not just sit back and watch the world crumble and say, yeah, I knew this was coming, or yeah, I thought something like this was going to happen. Even though many of us have known this was coming, we incarnated for this time, we knew it was coming, but we didn't come here to sit back and do nothing. In our own personal ascension journey, it's imperative to take action. To simply only do the meditations and only think the right thoughts is not going to manifest a new reality. It's not going to create change. We have been given these incarnations, this embodiment, in order to take action. We are not just beings of thought, we are beings of action and activation and activism. And now is the time that if you've not been active in the world of taking action, if you've just been sitting back, this is a call to action. And that call to action is to stand up and speak your truth and stand firmly in your call to freedom. And not just freedom for one, but freedom for all. I feel like as Americans, and I know not all of my followers are Americans, but as Americans, we wave the flag and we feel an entitlement to freedom. But our entitlement to freedom was earned. It was earned by our forefathers, by the people who founded this country, by leaving what they felt was, in many cases, unbearable conditions, or sometimes leaving for the promise of new freedoms, new possibilities. And along with that came many, many hardships. And this is true of anybody in any country where you have any freedom, really, right? Your forefathers went ahead of you in activism, and they created something amazing for you to live into. So we are not entitled to any of this. We have been enjoying the fruits of the labors of our forefathers. And for active military, for people in the medical field, for the police and the firemen, and all of the veterans and the people that have been active in this lifetime, thank you for fighting and holding strong to our freedoms and making this available. This topic is really close to my heart. My grandfather fought in World War II. He was in Pearl Harbor when it was bombed, and he was on a ship called the SS California, and he worked in the boiler room. And when the bombs hit, that's where he was. He didn't talk about this. He died at age 97, just a few years ago. And he started talking about this in his very last years. My mom and I were at his house one day, and he told this story. So I got to hear it firsthand from him. He had survivor's guilt. He had an amazing life, and he was an amazing person, and he lived a long life, and he lived a happy life. But he had survivor's guilt. He said, why me? Why was I spared when all of these amazing men were killed? And they were his friends, his buddies, his brothers. And it was really eye-opening to hear him tell that story, how he'd gone his whole life and barely talked about it because it was so traumatic. And it was something he just couldn't bring himself to talk about until the end of his life. So, I recently heard about the veterans. They're being denied healthcare if they haven't or choose not to receive the JAB. I'm not going to say the word. And also our military is being forced to receive it or retire or leave. Nurses, doctors, healthcare workers, airline workers, police officers, firefighters, all of these people who are serving us in a myriad of ways are being asked, not asked, They're losing their employment. They won't be able to serve us if they don't get that injection. And whatever you believe about that injection, you must be able to agree that this is not really about AVAX. This is about something much bigger and much more dire than that. This is about a government that wants to have control over not just in the US and our people, but over the world. And this has been coming for a long time. It's not suddenly something that was thought up overnight. I think this has been planned for quite some time, decades and decades. And it's being implemented now. So my call to action for you today is to come together as people, as citizens of the world, whatever your race, whatever your religion, whatever nationality you are, whatever political views you have, you must be able to see that there's something sinister going on in the way that these passports are being rolled out. I know my job is to bring hope and to bring light and to bring the vision that we're living into. And it's so important right now for you, every one of you, every one of us, to understand that this is our time to step up. We don't get that vision. We don't get the new world if we're not willing to create it. We create it, and we don't create it by sitting back in our homes and saying nothing and doing nothing. That's not how it works. We create it. Yes, with our vision. Yes, with our keeping your eye on the prize, keeping your eye where you're going, not getting sucked in by the fear. Absolutely. And taking action on unity. This is a time to stand up for freedom, for unity, for human community, for all of us to have our freedoms. We must all work together, and we must do it now. Really, we must do it now. I was raised Lutheran. I am spiritual, not religious. However, I can use the teachings of Jesus to exemplify this point. Jesus was a wonderful example of an embodiment of Christ consciousness. He took action, and he took action even though he knew it would eventually cause his own personal downfall, his death of his body, of his incarnation. He knew it wouldn't cause, there is no death, his soul would live on, but he didn't take the easy road. He came and he shared his truth, his vulnerability, his authenticity. He did not stand down when ordered to do something that he knew wasn't right. He took action. He stood for truth. He stood against the norm and against the powers that be at the time. Yes, he did lose his incarnation over it. He knew that was going to happen all along. We can model our actions on his behavior by standing for what we know is right, by standing for unity and freedoms, by not being divided, by standing up for all of the people in this world that deserve a voice, that don't have one. We get to stand for our freedoms now and stand together. Also, Siddhartha, you know the story of Siddhartha, who became the Buddha. He was raised in luxury in a palace, and his parents wanted to shield him from the outside world. They didn't want him to know that sickness and death and poverty existed. So for all of his youth, he never saw sickness or poverty or death. He was raised in luxury with anything he could ever want. And it wasn't until he had his firstborn child that he left the castle or left the luxury that he lived in and went out and saw the world for what it was. And he saw sickness, and he saw death, and he saw poverty, and he saw discrimination. And he was so upset by it that he left his luxurious upbringing. He left that life to go be among the people that were in the world to learn how to overcome and how to be of service. And you know what? He became enlightened. So this was his destiny. But again, it didn't come without hardship. It must have been very hard to leave his wife and his child. It must have been hard to leave the seat of luxury where he had everything, that every material thing that one would want. But he left that because he knew that there was more, that there was something more important than having a job or having luxury, that there was something more important than being comfortable, and that was taking action. And I'm sure that all of the various religions of the world have numerous stories of the people that have done amazing things and taken action and left their comfort and stood up for the rights of all. And this is what it's our time to do, is our time to stand up and take action and be a global community and not allow tyranny. The rights that we have as human beings are not given to us by the government. They are given to us by spirit, by God, by the universe. We are incarnated spirit. We are Christ consciousness embodied. We don't get our rights from the people that run our countries. We have sovereign rights, rights that humans have for being human and no other reason. We must not let the people that run these countries take those rights from us. Clearly, we can all agree on that. So I know this topic is heavy and it's personal and it's so powerful and it's so just in my heart. I also want to say, for anyone that is going to lose their job for standing for what they believe in, it's more important to stand for what you believe in. It's more important to go with what you know is right in your heart. It's more important to protect your children from something that could injure them. It's more important to go with what you know is right, not what you're being told to do. Compliance to a government that does not have your best interest at heart is not acceptable anymore. It's just not, and it never was. And I believe, as Americans at least, we fell into, so many of us fell into the belief that everything's taken care of, you know, everything's handled, we're all gonna be okay, the land of the free and the brave, we are golden and we can't be harmed and our freedoms can't be taken away. And now we're seeing that that is just not true. It's time for us to stand up and do what we know is right and come together as a global community to support each other, regardless of any age, any appearance, any political standing, any religious standing. We are a global community. And for those of us who are creating New Earth together, those, you know who you are. If you're following me, you're probably watching right now. It's time for us to not just vision it, not just hold strong to with our eye on the prize and feel it and experience it. Yes, those things are important, but to take action, to step into it now. This is the time to step into it. And sometimes that means doing something, doing many things that are uncomfortable. This is a call to action. Stand up for your rights. band together, join your community, find your tribe, and let's create this new world together. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be amazing. And it's not going to be handed to us on a silver or golden platter. We must take action. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the Ascension community. I love you. I cherish you. Namaste.